Hi, I'm Adam Greenside, and this is Deaf President Now. Thesis. In March of 1988, the students at Gallaudet University were getting a new president after Terry Lisi resigned. The winner was Zinsser, and the students didn't like that, so for a week they protested. To start with, they didn't let any administrators in the school, only students and staff. Wednesday, they got into NBC Nightline News to project their voices. Later that week, Zinsser resigned, and King I. Jordan was presented as the new president at Gallaudet University. And here is how it happened. Lead up to Deaf President Now. In March of 1988, the last president of Gallaudet University, Terry Lisi, resigned. So there was an election between three people. Two of the main, Elizabeth Zinsser and King I. Jordan, deaf. The other one was hard of hearing. Forgot his name. I believe it does come up later in this segment. They ultimately went with a hearing woman who knew no sign language. Deaf people took it as a spit in the face, or deaf can't do anything. It's at a deaf and hard of hearing school, so not that good of an idea. I was able to interview my teacher, Miss Maxie, or Rebecca Thomas. Beforehand, during the interview, I forgot to also mention she works at Anoka Ramsey Community College. But here is the interview. This is Rebecca Thomas, the ASL teacher at Blaine High School, and appointed by the Governor Dayton for the Minnesota Commission for the Deaf, Blind, and hard of hearing.
Before Deaf President Now, Gallaudet University had many people on the board who were hearing. They didn't understand deaf culture, sign language, so forth, and they were making decisions for deaf people. The board believed that deaf people can do anything. And past presidents, within 124 years that the college had been established, all past presidents were hearing, and so this was angering some of the deaf people on campus. So, three candidates that they had that were running for the new president, out of the three candidates, one was deaf, one was hard of hearing, one was hearing. The board decided to choose a hearing person who didn't know American Sign Language and didn't know deaf culture. And this angered many of the deaf people all across the United States.
So yeah, that was a brief summary of what I have taken a little bit to explain. The beginning. As suggested, the beginning was started after Terry Lisi resigned, and the candidate who was chosen, of course, was Zinsser, chosen by Spillman and the rest of the board. The students were furious. In March, the protest around the apartment where the meeting took place was just the beginning of the protests. Through the next week, there will be protesting, and for these four demands: a deaf president, the chair of board of trustees, Spillman, to resign, at least 51% of the board of trustees to be deaf, and no reprisals. Explaining basically what it means, they wanted a deaf president, Dr. Harvey Carson, or King I. Jordan. I forgot to mention Dr. Harvey Carson is hard of hearing, but I mean, that's a little bit improvement over just a hearing woman who knew no sign language. The chair of board of trustees must resign, so Spillman must resign. At least 51% of the board of trustees must be deaf, so no 50-50 and deaf as majority, ultimately focusing on deaf aspects throughout the college. And no reprisals towards a student or faculty in the protest. To these students, the first day, they locked up the campus, which was March 7th. The students barricaded themselves with motorcycles and buses, then deflating the tires. Unfortunately, that's probably not what a bus looked like back then. These are the new updated buses for Gallaudet University. I say they look pretty spiffy. Anyway, once they locked out the board of trustees until they got what they wanted, they started a march towards Washington, D.C. The next day, March 8th, they continued the protest. In light of spring break, the students refused and to allow Gallaudet's doors to reopen, claiming they wouldn't open the gates until they were given by a deaf president. Consequently, the students decided to stay at the school. During spring break, Zinsser said it is the role of the board to choose a president and to replace a president, stirring outrage in the protesters. Later that evening, they went on to ABC Nightline News with actress Marlee Matlin with Hillbook and Zinsser. Already it's the final days. The students met with Zinsser. She agreed to the third and fourth demand of the students, but that did not satisfy the protesters. They stated that Gallaudet needed to stand as a role model for deaf people in other deaf schools, a goal easier accomplished with a deaf president. Meanwhile, in Gallaudet's Interpreter Communication Center, hearing protesters received phone calls from businesses, friends, and anonymous donations of money, food, and other supplies to aid the protest. Others outside help, the deaf community came from the workers' union. Mobile, then president of American Postal Workers Union, shared his support for the protest. One of the protest's most important turn of events was delivered in a speech by Jordan, who proclaimed, "I only have anger towards the decision of the board. We need to focus. We need to focus the world's attention to the larger issue. The four demands are justified. Zinsser must resign." He didn't say must resign. Zinsser resigned. Then more than 2,500 protesters marched on Capitol Hill holding banners that said, "We still have a dream." Final day, students and faculty celebrated, and staff celebrated in the Gallaudet Fieldhouse when the four demands were met, and King I. Jordan was selected as the new president. During his first press interview after gaining presidency, Jordan delivered one of the most famous quotes: "Deaf people can do anything hearing people do except hear." Phil Bravin, who was deaf, was appointed as chairperson. The board, since Spillman resigned, Bravin, who was the first deaf chair, was appointed as chair for Lexington School for the Deaf, following similar protests in 1994. And here's just an interview for basically an after effect of Deaf President Now. This is Rebecca Thomas again for part 2 of Deaf President Now.
After Deaf President Now, finally Gallaudet was heard. They had selected the deaf president. The deaf president could sign himself, and he understood deaf culture, which was phenomenal. Any of the students there could approach him, talk with him, so forth. The board now must have majority deaf, 51% majority, which is great, and it's actually echoed across the United States. In fact, the board that I serve on here in Minnesota must have 51% majority, and I'm one of the representatives. The viewpoint of deaf, well, that changed a little bit. Not all are accepting, but most people are accepting of deaf and hearing people. Those who are not accepting, well, it's because of language barriers that happen. And since that happened in '88, well, right around 1990, sign language started taking off across the United States, and now we offer it both in high school and colleges.
So, of course, I would like to thank Miss Maxie for being able to allow me to interview her, and I hope that this was educational for you and that you somewhat enjoyed it.